Okay, if I asked you to close your eyes and picture the United States Army doing its job, what's the first image that comes to mind? Be honest.
Oh, I think I know where this is going. For most people, it's probably a tank, cresting a hill, mud flying everywhere.
Right.
Or maybe a squad of infantry moving fast through a city, weapons up.
Exactly. It's kinetic. It's loud. It's explosive. We think of the military and we think of the fight. The bang.
And that's a natural assumption. I mean, that's the part that makes it into the movies, right? It's what you see on the news.
Sure.
But if you actually sit down and read the doctrine, the foundational logic that governs how the Army operates, that view isn't just incomplete. It's actually dangerously misleading.
Dangerously misleading.
Yeah.
That's a strong way to put it right out of the gate.
I mean it. Because if you only focus on the explosion, you miss the point of why the fighting is even happening. You completely miss the forest for the burning trees. You lose sight of the outcome.
And that outcome is exactly what we're digging into today. We are looking at a really foundational document, Strategic Foundations of Land Power and Army Operations. Specifically, we're cracking open Field Manual 3.0, Chapter 1. We're just focusing on, the first two paragraphs 1.1 to 1.2.
Yeah, and this is bedrock material. We're not talking about a manual on how to clean a rifle or salute. This chapter, it describes the very reason the Army exists. It's the whole argument for land power.
What I love about this deep dive is the perspective we're taking. We're not looking at this from the foxhole. We are trying to see this through the eyes of, say, a division or a brigade combat team commander.
And that's the key. We're sitting in the command tent. You've got the maps on the wall. Radios are buzzing. The coffee's probably stale.
Wow.
And you're trying to figure out how to use this massive organization to achieve something permanent.
Permanent. That's the word. We're looking at the commander's notes and the summary and the source. And the mission, when you really peel it back, isn't just about conflict. It's about enduring outcomes.
Which is a fascinating phrase for a military organization, isn't it? Enduring outcomes. It implies that, breaking things is actually the easy part. Fixing the situation so it stays fixed. That's the hard part.
Okay, so let's start at the very top. The source lays out the Army's primary mission in paragraph 1.1. It says the mission is to organize, train, and equip forces to fight and win prompt, sustained land combat.
Okay, hold on. We have to stop right there. Don't just rush past that sentence.
Why? It sounds pretty standard. Fight and win. I mean, it's on the posters.
It sounds standard, but the magic is in the adjectives. There are two words in that sentence that are doing a tremendous amount of work, and most people just glaze right over them. Prompt and sustained.
Prompt and sustained. Okay, let's unpack that. Prompt seems obvious enough. Get there fast.
Yep.
When the call comes, you answer it.
Right. Prompt is the crisis response. The balloon goes up, and the Army needs to be there now. But sustained.
Yes.
That's where the complexity just explodes. That is where the amateurs get separated from the professionals.
How so?
Because sustained is the difference between a raid and a war. For a commander, this isn't just about showing up. It's about having the endurance to stay. It's a difference between a sprint and a marathon you have to run with 100 pounds of gear while someone's shooting at you for months.
So as a commander, I can't just plan for the first clash, the first 24 hours.
Absolutely not. If you build a force that's lightning fast, but it runs out of ammo and fuel in 3 days, you have failed the sustained part of the mission. You might win the first battle, but you're going to lose the campaign. You're a glass cannon one shot, and you shatter.
It brings up this tension then between speed and endurance. You have to be light enough to be prompt, but heavy enough to be sustained.
That's the central tension of all military planning. The source highlights that task organization, which is just Army speak for how you build your team for a mission, has to be built for endurance. But before we get into the how, we really need to understand the what. The doctrine outlines 4 strategic roles that execute this whole mission.
I have them right here. And for you listening, you should probably visualize these as 4 distinct pillars holding everything up. We've got shape, counteraggression, prevail in large-scale combat operations, or LSCO and consolidate gains.
And I want to be clear, these aren't just buzzwords for a PowerPoint slide. For a division commander, these 4 roles frame everything. They are the mechanism for generating land power. If you don't get these, you don't get the job.
Let's walk through them because the nuance is really interesting. First up is shape. To me, shape sounds a bit like diplomacy. Is the Army getting into the diplomacy business?
In a way, yeah. Shaping is everything that happens before the shooting starts. It's about influencing the environment. Security exercises with allies, positioning forces, reassuring partners.
So you're setting the stage.
You're tilting the playing field. Think of it like a gardener preparing the soil. You want to shape the environment so that if a fight does break out, the battlefield is already stacked in your favor. You've got friends, you've got supplies pre-positioned, the enemy knows you're ready.
Or ideally, you shape it so well that the other side decides not to fight at all.
Exactly. The best victory is the one you don't have to bleed for, which leads right into the second role, counteraggression.
Okay, counteraggression.
Yeah.
This feels more reactive.
This is the shield. This is deterrence in action.
But isn't deterrence just part of shaping? How is this different?
It's more active. Shaping is general. Countering is specific. You're countering a specific threat. Shaping is, we are friends with this country. Countering is, we are moving a brigade to the border because their neighbor is massing tanks.
I see. It's the warning shot.
And if that warning fails, counteraggression means stopping their initial attack. It's taking the first punch.
And staying on your feet.
Right. It's the shield that stops the blow so you have time to draw the sword.
You're drawing the sword. I'm guessing that's rule number 3. Prevail in large-scale combat operations.
That's the heavy lifting. That's the fighting and winning most people picture. We're talking high-intensity warfare against a major adversary. This isn't counterinsurgency. This is tank-on-tank, artillery, cyber, space, the whole kitchen sink.
The source uses the acronym LSKO, large-scale combat operations. It feels like the Army is really pivoting back to this focus.
It is. For 20 years, the focus was elsewhere. But this doctrine, it explicitly refocuses on being able to prevail in a massive, chaotic clash against a sophisticated enemy.
But, and this is a huge but, in the document winning, that clash is not the end of the story.
No. And this is where the doctrine gets really profound. The fourth rule, consolidate gains.
The source really seems to emphasize this one. Why is it separate from prevailing? I mean, if I've prevailed, haven't I won?
Not necessarily. History is just littered with armies that prevailed in the battle but lost the war. Consolidating gains is the critical and often overlooked step of securing the win. If you destroy the enemy army but you don't consolidate gains, you haven't actually won anything. You've just broken a lot of things.
It's the so what factor.
Exactly. You took the hill, so what? You destroyed the tank division, so what? If you don't replace that enemy force with security and stability and civil order, the chaos just comes right back, usually worse.
The source makes an interesting point here about the commander's mindset. It says these roles aren't just abstract ideas. It says you exist to generate and employ land power as part of the joint team.
That joint team part is key, working with the Air Force, Navy, Marines. But the focus for the Army commander is how their specific actions fit into one of those 4 roles. It shifts the whole mindset from just destroy the target to achieve the strategic role.
So this brings us to the commander's notes section. This is where the rubber meets the road. It talks about applying this to planning, specifically something called MDMP.
The military decision-making process.
Sounds bureaucratic.
It can feel that way at 3 a.m, but it's a really rigorous system for solving complex problems. It's how the Army brain works. And the source gives a very specific directive here about mission analysis, the first step.
It says you have to anchor your problem statement and hire's intent, specifically in those 4 roles.
Just think about what that changes. A commander doesn't just look at a map, point to a hill, and ask, how do we take that? That's a tactical question. The real question, based on this text, is what are we shaping? What are we countering? What are we prevailing in? Or what are we consolidating?
It forces you to ask, why are we taking this goal in the first place?
And more importantly, what happens after we take it? The source explicitly says that when you're developing your different plans, your courses of action, you have to tie your major efforts to one of these roles.
The text gives a great example. It says, decisive operations supports prevailing in LSK. Shaping operations support consolidation of gains.
That's a fascinating distinction. Did you catch the nuance there?
I think so, but break that down. I would normally think shaping supports the main attack, right?
Yeah.
Softening up the enemy.
Oh, that's the traditional view, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I fire artillery here so my tanks can break through there. But the source is suggesting you can and should have shaping operations that support consolidation of gains.
So you're doing things during the fight while bullets are still flying that are specifically designed to make the post-fight stability easier.
Yes, it means maybe you choose not to bomb the power plant even if the enemy is using it because you know you'll need that electricity to stabilize the city in 3 days. You aren't just planning to win the firefight, you are planning for the peace that follows simultaneously.
Wow. That requires an incredible amount of mental bandwidth. You're fighting the war and building the peace at the exact same time.
It connects right back to that idea of task organization we touched on. The source had a specific note there. It said to build your teams for sustained combat, not just initial entry.
Right, don't build a glass cannon.
Precisely. When a commander is comparing different plans, plan A versus plan B, the source says they have to prioritize endurance factors.
It lists them out. Fires, protection, and sustainment.
Let's just translate those. Fires is artillery and air support. Can you keep shooting for weeks? Protection is keeping your force alive against drones, missiles, things like that.
And sustainment?
Logistics, beans, bullets, fuel, water, all the unsexy stuff that actually wins wars. The source is warning commanders. Do not build a force that is light and fast just to get there if it's going to run out of steam, because if you run out of steam, you can't fulfill the mission.
And if you lose the sustain part, you absolutely cannot consolidate gains.
You physically can't do it. You'll be too busy just trying to survive to worry about stabilizing the region.
I want to pivot deeper into consolidate gains because it feels like the emotional core of this chapter. The source spends a lot of time on it.
It does, and for good reason. Historically, this is the hardest part. It's where the U.S. military has struggled the most in recent decades. We are very, very good at breaking things. We are still learning how to fix them efficiently.
The source brings this up with mission command and commander's intent. For those listening, commander's intent is basically the description of what success looks like, right?
Correct. It's the part of the order that says, look, if everything goes wrong and you lose communications, this is the end result we need. It's the North Star.
Well, the source has a very stern rule about this. It says the commander's intent can not only describe enemy destruction.
That is a massive shift. A traditional commander might want to write, intent, destroy the 3rd Guards tank regiment. Simple, clean.
But the source says no. It says the intent must describe the desired post-conflict condition.
Let's just pause on that phrase, desired post-conflict condition. That forces the commander to visualize the end state. It's not enough to say the enemy brigade is destroyed. You have to say the enemy brigade is destroyed, civil order is restored, and key infrastructure is secured.
Why is that distinction so critical? Why not just focus on the destruction first and figure out the rest later?
Because that figure it out later approach creates a vacuum. This intent, as the source points out, guides transitions. If you don't know what it's supposed to look like when the shooting stops, you won't know when to stop shooting. Or you won't be ready to switch gears from kill to build.
You just get stuck in the prevail role forever.
Exactly. And that is a recipe for a quagmire. You win every single battle, but the war never ends because you haven't defined what consolidated gains actually looks like.
This leads to one of the most practical tools mentioned, running estimates. This sounds like staff work.
It is the staff work. It's the people in the background, intel, logistics, ops, constantly updating the commander on what's actually happening. It's the dashboard of the car.
And the text says the staff has to assess how current operations are contributing to these strategic roles. But then it gives this very specific warning. It says the role of consolidation of gains is the one most often under-resourced or underplanned.
That's the red flashing light on the dashboard. The source is explicitly telling commanders, hey, you are going to forget this, don't.
It's human nature, isn't it? When you're planning a massive combat op, all your energy goes into the prevail bucket. You want to make sure you win the fight.
Of course. No one wants to lose the battle. It's existential. If you lose the battle, you die. But the big insight here, the aha moment from FM30 is that you can win the battle and still fail the mission.
Because the mission, as we said at the very start, is prompt, sustained land combat to secure enduring outcomes.
Right. If you prevail in LSKO, you smash the enemy. But you didn't plan for consolidation, you've just created a power vacuum. You haven't secured the enduring outcome. And according to this manual, securing that outcome is the entire reason you're there.
So a good staff officer needs to be raising their hand and saying, hey, boss, great plan to destroy those tanks, but we have 0 resources allocated for securing the city afterwards.
And that's where risk assessment comes in. If that consolidation piece is flashing red, the whole mission is at risk, even if the combat part looks green.
It's really a holistic view of warfare. It kind of challenges the idea that war and peace are 2 separate things.
They're not. They're a continuum. The 4 roles, shape, counter, prevail, consolidate, are a cycle. They bleed into each other. You shape to prevent a fight. If it happens, you counter and prevail. But as you prevail, you have to be positioning yourself to consolidate.
And if you consolidate well, you're basically shaping the new environment.
That's the ideal, yes. You shape an environment where peace lasts. But if you just prevail and leave, you haven't shaped anything. You've just caused chaos.
Let's loop back to the beginning to tie this all together. We started with this idea that the Army is just about fighting. But looking at FM30, it's clear that the fighting part, the prevail and Ellis care role, is just 1/4 of the whole equation.
It's the most violent fourth, for sure, the most resource-intensive. But it's supported by shaping and countering, and it is totally meaningless without consolidating.
So if you're a commander reading this, or just someone trying to understand military thinking, the takeaway isn't just hit harder.
No, the takeaway is think longer. Think about the timeline. Think about endurance. Think about the after.
Which redefines what winning even means.
It does. Winning isn't a moment in time. It's not a flag-raising ceremony. Winning is a process. It is the continuous process of securing those enduring outcomes.
I love that. You have to be able to stay in the end zone. That's the whole sustained part of the mission.
And you have to pack your bags for it. That's the task organization part. Don't pack for a touchdown celebration. Pack for a permanent residence.
This has been a really eye-opening look at just 2 paragraphs of text. It's amazing how much philosophy is packed in there.
It's the DNA of the Army. It explains the why behind the what.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one last thought. We talked a lot about the risk of ignoring consolidation of gains. The source explicitly warns against it.
Calls it the biggest trap.
So here's the question to mull over. If a commander executes a brilliant plan, destroys the enemy force, achieves every tactical objective, but fails to define the post-conflict condition, have they actually fulfilled the Army's primary mission? Or, by the strict definition of the source we read today, have they failed?
That's the ultimate question. Destruction without purpose is not victory. Something to think about. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Always a pleasure.